morning, friends and enemies. We're recapping everything that happened from the NFL draft, night one, round one. We will be doing the exact same thing tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're tuning in, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification button. And this is obviously going to be from a fantasy perspective, more from a dynasty perspective as well. Maybe we'll hit some notes on the redraft front as well, because we are live on both the dynasty and the redraft channel. So if you didn't know the other one existed, go subscribe to that. And I want to just start off with the sobering truth here from Incarcerated Bob. If you've been incarcerated, you know the truth, and you tweet truths. And he said, 15, 16, half of the first round are going to end up being busts or just role players. That's the truth of the matter. Truth of the matter was, it was God's plan to show y'all the busts. All right, so everybody that we're all excited about, a lot of them not going to be good. A lot of them not going to do a fucking thing for you in fantasy football, all right? So let's just start there. Let's start there, and let's actually just end the video. Fuck it. No, we're going to go through pick by pick. We're going to do a more holistic approach here. Maybe talk a little bit of ball. Let's talk a little bit of fantasy. So we've got all the round one picks, and from a fantasy perspective, there weren't a lot of real crazy picks or ones that I felt like were not chalky or that we almost like weren't expecting already to happen. Pretty much every pick that happened, fantasy relevant, I had seen in one form or another in mock drafts leading up to this point. We'll go through it. I've actually already filmed my rookie rankings video for today. So basically each day of the draft, I'm going to go live at about 10 a.m. Eastern time, recapping what happened in the previous night. And then later on in the day, depending on how quick Tony is with the edits, you will get an updated rookie ranking video, which is being edited and will be posted. So we only had 10 skill players drafted last night. Obviously, we started with Cam Ward here. Going to the Titans, that was no surprise. He was like minus 8 bajillion in the books by the time the draft ended up hitting. So Cam Ward steps in there, and Cam Ward is a playmaker. He is a gunslinger. He is a guy that's going to take shots. He's a guy that's going to move around the pocket. He is a guy that is athletic. He can be erratic at times. He can hold the ball a little bit too long at times. So I think there are pros and cons to Cam Ward's game. He's going to be a guy that needs to develop, obviously, and probably protect the ball a little bit. But it's got to be exciting for Tennessee. You're the first overall pick. You're the quarterback. Anytime you can breathe a little bit of new juice, new life into a team like that, it's fun. So we'll see what happens with Will Levis. I feel like maybe they trade him in day 3 or something like that. I can't imagine they get more than like a 5th or 6th round pick for him at this point. But Cam Ward steps in there, and, it's exciting for the offense. Like, you like Calvin Ridley. Ridley had a good year last year, so I don't really see this, pushing his upside up or his ceiling up tremendously. He's getting older too. So there's not a lot of players in Tennessee that are super affected by Cam Ward. Right now, I think the way that rookie drafts are going to shape up, Jeanty's probably going to go 1 in 99.9% of rookie drafts. Maybe there are IDP leagues where Travis Hunter will go 1. I'm not familiar with IDP scoring, so I would kind of assume Travis Hunter ends up being the 101, like maybe even dynasty startup drafts. I don't know how IDP scoring works, so I'm not really going to speak on it, but I think Jeanty's going to go 1, and then there's going to be a mixed bag of 3 players that typically we see rotated in the 102 spot. I think it's Travis Hunter, I think it is Omarion Hampton, and I think it is Cam Ward. So obviously QB needy teams or people that really like Cam Ward as a prospect will probably jump in and take him at the 102. Travis Hunter, I think this team has been progressively building in rookie drafts. I think a month or 2 ago, most people were kind of scared to take him anywhere earlier than like the 109, but we quickly saw him move from the 112 to the 110 to the 108. Now people are like, yeah, he's the 106. And I think after last night, I think people are just going to get fully on board with Hunter being the 102, the 103, 104. Basically everything we've heard is that he's going to play a significant portion of snaps at the wide receiver position. So he goes number 2 overall to Jacksonville. Obviously, they traded up from the 5 pick to Cleveland. Cleveland moves back, picks up a first for next year. But like I said in another video, I've made 17 videos already this morning. They gave up the farm for Travis Hunter, but that is just what you do for cash cows. Like the symbolicness there. Hunter is an elite blue chip prospect. And not that I think Mason Graham's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, but Travis Hunter, like if Travis Hunter plays both sides of the ball, which I don't expect that to be what happens at the start. I think he'll be a 75 to 80% snap guy on the offensive side of things, and then probably play 20, 30% on the defensive side of things. But I do think as his rookie contract progresses, he's going to get more familiar with both sides of the ball and play as much as he can handle conditioning-wise. And clearly, because he's been doing it since high school, his conditioning is probably as good as anybody in the NFL at this point. So Hunter, all in on playing wide receiver. So if you have him at the 102, got no problem with it. Obviously, massive boost to a guy like Trevor Lawrence, massive boost to the team overall. Like if Travis Hunter can stay healthy and play both sides of the ball, you are basically getting the top cornerback and one of the top wide receivers in one pick, which is what would make that trade up make sense. So yes, Cleveland might have got value for it, but like in fantasy, you don't win dynasty leagues by containing or gaining value. You win it by hitting on really good players in your drafts. You win it by having players on the field with massive production, right? And that's what Travis Hunter is going to bring. So if he can stay healthy on both sides of the ball, you got a 2-for-1 player there. You got the best prospect at both positions on your team for the price of one player. But two, obviously gave up 2 first-rounders, whatever. So Hunter, to me, is a dude that I think can develop into a Stephon Diggs type player. I think he can be more of a line of scrimmage type player too. He can be more of a slot player. I think he could be a guy that racks up targets and receptions. Where like Brian Thomas Jr. is still an elite wide receiver one, of course, and I think they'll probably take more downfield shots to a BTJ. And BTJ is great around the line of scrimmage too. You can dump the ball off to him and let him make plays in space as well. But now you have two incredibly high upside, dynamic pass catchers in Jacksonville. Where if Trevor Lawrence can't get it done now, we got some issues here. So Hunter, I think he's a slam dunk top 3-4 rookie pick. Abdul Carter to New York. They obviously are just trying to kind of like establish an identity. Back in the days, 10, 15, 20-ish years ago, over that time frame when they were, in the playoffs and making runs to the Super Bowl, they did it by stockpiling these defensive players, the Jason Pierre-Pauls, the Justin Tucks, the Michael Strahans, the OCU Minoras, all those guys where it's like they just had this ongoing list of really good defensive line players that were continuously getting to the QB. So they're doing that with Abdul Carter. The Patriots end up going with Will Campbell to protect Drake May. You like that. Mason Graham goes 5 to Cleveland. And then we've got the pick for fantasy here, and that is Ashton Jeanty going to the Raiders at 6, which everyone and their mother saw coming from, light years away. And this is like the best way that we can really describe this draft capital of what we can expect to come here. Diana Rossini tweeted out yesterday, Ashton Jeanty is the 7th running back since 2015 to be drafted in the top 10. And when you look at the list, I mean, it's basically a can't-miss elite type of prospect group of players outside of Leonard Fournette. And I would argue if Fournette, he dealt with those ankle injuries in the earlier years, year 2, 3, 4, which really ended up just zapping his momentum. But had he stayed healthy, I think we'd probably be looking at Leonard Fournette a lot differently. But Todd Gurley, Zeke, Leonard Fournette, C-Mac, Saquon, Bijan, Ashton Jeanty, those are all pretty much dudes who at one point or another, if you had them on your fantasy teams, it was pretty much a lock to get into the playoffs. And at the same time, very hard to win your league if you didn't have these players. Running backs at the high end of the spectrum are typically the dudes where if you don't have that guy, which Ashton Jeanty is kind of lined up to be that guy, you're going to have a hard time winning your league. So Jeanty, the clear 101, regardless of where he ended up landing. The Jets ended up going with the tackle, which I think they're going to look back, and that's going to be a mistake. I think they're going to regret not drafting Tyler Warren there, but that is for the birds and the bees. At 8, Bryce Young gets his wide receiver 1 in Tet McMillan. So, with Tet McMillan, he's coming out of Arizona. Highly regarded prospect, obviously. A lot of teams had him as their wide receiver 1. The move makes a lot of sense. Bryce Young is coming off of his breakout sophomore season. They clearly need a real wide receiver 1 there. They don't have much. They've used capital on Jonathan Mingo, who's not there anymore. They drafted Xavier Legette last year in the first round. Legette was fine, but clearly didn't progress into something that you are banking on to be a wide receiver 1. They re-signed Adam Thielen. They got Jalen Coker. So they got a lot of what-ifs and maybes, and Tet becomes the wide receiver 1 immediately. Now, when you look at top 10 wide receivers, a lot of them hit. But there are levels to this shit, right? You obviously have busts because there's going to be busts at every position. I think Tet has a high floor. The way that I think you should look at Tet McMillan, because right now, when you see my rookie rankings video coming out later today, Tet's going to be the 105 for me. And the reason I say that is because when you look at top 10 receivers, again, I think for the most part, you have guys that flame out, of course, the Corey Davises, the Sammy Watkins. A lot of them have high floors. But not every player is Jamar Chase. Not every player ends up being the elite Malik Neighbors type of player. Where I see Tet kind of coming in is, think of him as like Amari Cooper. That's the way I would look at it. So you ask yourself, okay, here's a guy that's probably going to get me 70, 75 for 1,000, in a good year, 80 for 1,200, 8 touchdowns, and probably consistently do that. That's kind of where I see him fitting into the fantasy picture. So you ask yourself, is the 105 worth that? Yeah, of course. Is the 102 worth that? That's up to you. That's why I don't have him at the 105. So when I look at him, I think of him as a high floor player that should fit in really nicely. Do I think he's consistently going to be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver? No. Do I think he'll consistently be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver? I would border on no, but he's not like too far out of that. I think he'll probably consistently flirt with like wide receiver 10 to 16, in that range. High floor guy. You're not going to regret picking him in your rookie drafts. But again, there are levels to the top 10 receivers. There are the Jamar Chases. There are those types of players that are just different, okay? So when I look at the rest of the receivers here, like, yeah, the rest of them take a backseat in Carolina, of course. Like, Leggett got hurt there. He was a touchdown guy last year, but Tet can play the touchdown mold, obviously, as a bigger receiver. So it's a hit to all the other wide receivers there for sure. But I think it just means Tet's going to move into a very, very high target share role immediately. And that's one of the good things about grabbing a dude like Tet off the rip is you do get that value boost immediately, because he's not going to go into a situation where he's like the wide receiver 3 out of the gate and gets 75, 80 targets as a rookie. He's immediately, you're a top 10 pick outside of what fucking Arthur Smith did to Drake London. They did go run heavy last year, but they're not a run heavy offense. They want to run the ball, or they want to run the offense through Bryce Young. So in a normal pass attempt level offense, Tet McMillan is going to get real targets here. Okay. So that's a nice little value boost you will get from McMillan, where I think his floor is intact. His value insulation is sitting there as well. After Tet at 8, we've got Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle in New Orleans, and we've got Colston Loveland, tight end to Chicago. So we'll kind of run through the next 3 picks as well. Michael Williams goes to San Francisco. Love that pick. Tyler Booker, they've kind of shored up their offensive line with Dallas has a lot of moving parts and players retiring from their O-line, so they needed to boost that. Kenneth Grant, D-tackle, goes to Miami. And then we got Tyler Warren at tight end. So you've got the 2 tight ends in this class, the top 2 tight ends in this class. And Tyler Warren is, what is this? Sorry, I'm looking at the fucking comments now in the chat. And I wasn't before, and now when I look at them, I hide them for a reason. Maybe I'll hide them until the video is done. But now I see this shit, and it throws me off. Define 10 o'clock. That would be the hour after 9 and the hour before 11. I don't know how I can define that any better for you. Yeah. Okay, so when we look at the tight ends, the difference here clearly is the landing spot, right? Like Colston Loveland goes to Chicago as the number 10 overall pick. And they've got Ben Johnson. I think the narrative is very easy. It's very easy to talk yourself into. Colston Loveland is this pass-catching dynamo out of Michigan. Colston Loveland is going to be the Sam Laporta for Ben Johnson. And I get that, and I don't really have a point of disagreement there. With Tyler Warren going to Indy, the landing situation is much more murky, right? We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be next year. We don't know what the pecking order is for the passing offense. We don't know if they're going to average more than 25 pass attempts a game. But this is Dynasty. We need to be looking long-term for this stuff, all right? And in my personal opinion, I just like Tyler Warren much more as a prospect than Loveland. And it's not because I dislike Loveland. He's not a guy that I didn't like, but I have very high praise for Tyler Warren. And I am such a fan of his game to the point that I will rank him over Colston Loveland in rookie drafts. I will be drafting Tyler Warren over Loveland. And again, a lot of people will disagree with that. And I would say that's, I don't want to say it's short-sighted, because I do see where Colston Loveland will have an absolute value injection boost in year 1 immediately. But I will push back a little bit. Like, when you have an offense that is dealing with a completely new system, right? You got Ben Johnson coming in. Caleb is now learning his second new offense in 2 years. He's got new weapons to deal with. It's a new year, it's a new season, it's a new team with a lot of new moving parts to it. Those things don't always just click like Madden. I know we want them to, but it doesn't always happen. So when I look at these two tight ends, and historically, I know we've had tight ends break out in the rookie seasons recently. I'm not saying it won't happen for these guys, but more often than not, it doesn't. So when I'm looking at deciding between a Tyler Warren and a Colston Loveland, I'm trying to look at long-term picture. How do I view them as prospects, and not trying to take a snapshot of what do I think will happen in 2025, this particular season, and then draft based on that. So with Loveland going into the Sam Laporta role, I will also caution you not to go too heavily into what his 2025 role will be, because Cole Kmet is still there. Now, clearly, they're not as high on Cole Kmet as some other people around the NFL might be, or just, general fans thinking he's good enough to be that guy. You don't draft a tight end 10 overall if he's not going to be the starter there. But a lot of times when you draft tight ends early and there is a veteran presence there, a guy that they like, he's not going to get a full snap share out the gate, which is why I'm looking at these guys and I'm thinking more towards year 2. So Sam Laporta goes in there and he's the guy immediately. He's the guy right out the gate, and that's why he had such an explosive rookie year. Do I think Ben Johnson's going to cook up a lot of cool shit for Loveland? Absolutely. But they also have Rome. They also have DJ Moore. And we'll see what they do in the backfield. I would be shocked if they don't grab a running back at pick 39 or 41 here, whether that's Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, and have a very, very strong presence in the run game here. So I think Loveland probably fit their offense more than Tyler Warren for the fact that they have a dude like Cole Kmet. And Cole Kmet and Tyler Warren's skill sets overlap a little bit more. So all to say, I have them ranked back-to-back in rookie drafts. I like Warren over Loveland because I'm trying to look at this as a more long-term picture, and I like Warren better as a prospect. But obviously the nut landing spot there for Colston Loveland. And I do think he's a guy you could probably take shots on in redraft leagues, in best ball drafts immediately. So we move to the Atlanta Falcons, who obviously got the steal of the draft here with Jalen Walker. We literally are now probably Super Bowl favorites. I haven't looked at the live odds yet, but I mean, you talk about the number one offense in the NFL, and then you add Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney to the front seven of the defense, and Jalen Walker and James Pierce. So just shout out to us. We might be the GOATs. Walter Nolan goes to Arizona. Love this pick for Arizona. D-tackle. He's a menace in the trenches, so good pick for them. Shamar Stewart goes to Cincinnati. Seattle shores up their interior offensive line. Makes a lot of sense there. Huge need for them. Same thing with the Bengals with the whole Trey Hendrickson stuff. And then we get to a fantasy relevant player once again. We've got Amecha Ibuka. G is silent, all right? G is silent. He goes to Tampa Bay. And again, for those of y'all just getting in here, I will be putting out a video later today that is re-ranking all the rookies following the most previous round. So there will be a video going out today that breaks down each skill player rookie as it relates to fantasy football and how I'm looking at rookie drafts now based on what happened. And then tomorrow I'll do the same thing based on rounds 2 and 3 and inject them into the rankings that I had from the previous day. So we had 10 skill players. Amecha Ibuka is someone I talked about at length in that video because I already filmed it. It'll be going live in 2 to 3 hours. This felt like a really, really sound football move for the Bucs. And I think on paper it's a little bit confusing because you look at the depth chart and you're like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tet McMillan, and this is a depth chart to me that feels really good right now. But I think there's a chance by next year we're looking at it and saying like, oh, like really, really sharp move for them to pick Ibuka because this could go south quickly. Mike Evans will eventually hit that wall where he's not the Mike Evans anymore. Maybe he's like more of a wide receiver 3 that just doesn't move down the field or create separation enough. Chris Godwin got re-signed, but he's obviously older now and coming off another major injury. There's a chance that he goes down the Cooper Kupp path where it's like you see the flashes and the glimpses, but he's clearly not his old self anymore, and they need this injection of youth into the wide receiver position. McMillan had that second half breakout. I will say a lot of the upside production came from touchdowns, and I think that's always something to be weary of with rookie wide receivers because that's not always a sticky stat. And I think looking at per route or per target or per reception metrics are a little bit more telling. And not that Jalen's were bad, but a lot of his production came from his fantasy production, and his breakout came from touchdowns. So I like him a lot, but clear sign to me that they have plans for Egbuka to be the guy in a year from now, because things could. I'm just painting the picture of how things could go south, and this could end up looking like a really good move. For the time being, in year one, hard to see a major impact, obviously. To me, though, he is still like. I think the way I'm looking at this rookie class right now is you have the top 5 guys who I think will make immediate high-level impacts in fantasy, right? You have Jeanty, and then you have your mix of Cam Ward, Omarion Hampton, Tet McMillan, and Travis Hunter. After that, I think every one of these guys are year 2 fantasy impact players and beyond. So that's when you start saying, okay, can I project into year 2 what their role is going to be, what their impact is going to be, what their upside is, how much I like this prospect. And Egbuka falls into that category for me, where year 1, there's not an obvious path to having high volume touches. Year 2, the picture becomes more clear. Same thing with the tight ends. Most don't break out in the rookie year. Same thing with the other skill players that were here with Matthew Golden and Omarion Hampton, or not Hampton, we'll talk about him in a sec, but Matthew Golden and the other guys that were drafted here, not a lot of skill players, obviously, but the rest of them are year 2 and beyond type players. So you have the top 5 guys who I think will impact the world immediately, and then the other ones we're a little bit more unsure of. So going past Egbuka, he is kind of right after that first initial tier for me, in that 106, 107 range, where, again, you're going to put a little bit of a heavy investment into it, and you probably won't be getting anything back immediately, but you'll feel really good in a year or two just getting that high floor player there. After Egbuka at 19, the Broncos took Barron at 20, who they clearly had as a blue chip prospect here, and now they grab another cornerback to solidify that defense. That's going to be a scary defense to throw against. Shedeur Sanders was looked at as a possibility here for Pittsburgh. They ended up going with Derek Harmon to ensure their interior defensive line. So Sanders is still available in round 2. Moved to pick 22, Omarion Hampton. And this was probably the most fun pick for fantasy purposes. He goes to the Chargers. The very instant reaction for most people is like, what the hell? They just signed Najee Harris. Najee Harris, he's on a 1-year, $5 million deal. Incentives to get up to $9 million. He won't hit those incentives now that Omarion Hampton is there. When you're a first-round running back, you are immediately inserted into, at minimum, the competition to be the starter. I would be very surprised if Omarion Hampton does not lead the backfield in touches and is not the starter. Sometimes they give the vet treatment. He'll be maybe Najee's a starter for week 1 or 2. Then it's going to be not all Hampton. It will be a split backfield for sure. But when you look at the situation, again, very important to be able to split Dynasty from Redraft. Najee Harris on a 1-year deal. 1 year, $5 million. There have been a handful of running backs, a ton of running backs over the last 5 years that have gotten $5 million, $4 million, $6 million annually that don't really mean shit. You look at Miles Sanders was a big contract, but more so guys like Zach Moss and Austin Eckler is on a 2-year, $8 million deal. So $1 million less annually than Najee Harris got. Zach Moss, same thing. I think he was 2 years, $8 million in Cincinnati. So when we look at Najee Harris, and a lot of people probably saw the 1 for 9, very incentive heavy. He will get 5, but that does not mean that you are the starter by any means. And when we look at the situation, going to have a great ground game. Going to be a really good team for a really long time. Have invested heavy capital into their offensive line. This is a perfect situation for Hampton. Maybe he goes for 1,000 from scrimmage and 8 touchdowns as a rookie, and you're a little bit underwhelmed in redraft, but by year 2, he's going to be the bell cow in what's probably going to be a really, really good offense. And that's why, for me, he's my 102 in rookie drafts. Very good pass catcher. Got the size. I don't think I saw as much breakaway speed on film as his combine numbers suggest, but good to know that the overall athleticism is there. Right after Hampton, we've got Matthew Golden going at pick 23 to the Green Bay Packers. I love this pick for real life. Packers fans should be fucking hyped about it. Golden's a dude that I think LaFleur is going to be able to move around significantly and get him open downfield, right? He's got that 4.29 speed. Whether or not you feel like he actually plays at that speed, he's fast as fuck regardless of whether or not he's Xavier-worthy type of speed. This gives them a reliable catcher of the football, and that's something that they haven't had. A guy that can hopefully stay healthy, but can definitely catch the ball, move around, really good route runner, okay? So you look at Jaden Reed's pretty much penciled in to being a slot player for the Packers. Dontavian Wicks can't catch the fucking ball. Christian Watson tore his ACL at the end of last year. Obviously a great field stretcher, but he can't stay on the field, and he's consistently not connecting with Jordan Love and dropping balls and whatever. Golden gives him a very reliable route runner, intermediate, deep parts of the field, stretch, move him in motion, pre-play, And I think he's going to be really valuable to this Packers offense to give them more consistency. And that's what Jordan Love needs, because he's been despite like the high upside and the elite plays and the flashiness and him taking shots downfield, he's been erratic and he's been pretty inconsistent at the quarterback position, whether or not people want to admit it. But Golden gives him a nice floor of consistency, in my humble ass opinion. However, because the Packers split their touches up so heavily between all of their weapons, a little bit hard to get excited about Golden's upside for fantasy. You got Jaden Reed, like I said. You got Wicks. You got actually, let me check if Romeo Doubs is still there. I think he is. Romeo Doubs feels like he's like the Theo Riddick of the Packers, where he just feels like he's going to be on a lifetime contract with the Packers. Yeah, he's signed through 2025, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. So they still got him. They got Tucker Kraft, who had a nice little breakout last year, Luke Musgraves, whatever. But they also want to run the ball through Josh Jacobs. So there's just a lot of guys there that are going to get fed because LaFleur is really good at just maximizing everybody's usage there. So, again, Golden, great real-life player, and really like him in general as a player, but a little bit hard to talk myself into the upside of what he can be in a fantasy sense. 24, we got Donovan Jaxson in Minnesota. They've made a lot of moves to their offensive line. It's going to be a fun offensive group for Aaron Jones and J.J. McCarthy there. They brought in both of the guys from the Indianapolis Colts, Ryan Kelly, and why can't I think of his fucking name? I can't think of his name, but they brought in a very good offensive lineman, the other offensive lineman from the Colts, and then, grab Donovan Jaxson here. So they're going to have a very, very, very good offensive line in Minnesota. They're doing everything they can to build around JJ. They have an elite weapons group. They have a really good running back. They have a really good offensive line. So this is a sneaky, really good pick for Minnesota. And then you got Jaxson Dart. New York trades up to pick 25. They take Jaxson Dart, who is the quarterback of the future, I guess. I have Shedeur Sanders ranked higher than Jaxson Dart in my rookie rankings, at least from a prospect standpoint. I think Sanders is a better quarterback, and I would have liked them to have taken him there instead, but could understand, if you have off-field concerns, whatever. Jaxson Dart, I don't expect him to start year one. I think that's Russ's job to lose. Being in New York, it's very possible that he does. The media has a very, very strong persuasion on the way things play out here, and this team could be bad. And, if you're a quarterback and you're winning 5 games through week 14, there's a very good chance that you're getting benched. So I think we could see Jaxson Dart later on in the season, maybe year 2, but that's what you're banking on. At the end of the day, you're not really trying to let a round 1 quarterback slide too heavily in Superflex rookie drafts, but I will say he is my last ranked skill player in rookie drafts for round 1. So we had 10 of them, and he will be the last one. Those will move pretty significantly based on what happens in round 2 and round 3. There's still a lot of really good running backs on the board. We have a lot of exciting wide receivers. A lot of people really like Luther Burden and so on and so forth. So there will still be some shakeup in the rankings. And again, you'll get a more official actual rankings list in the video that will come out in a few hours on the Dynasty channel. So if you want to hear that, if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe. We can talk about it from a little bit more of a redraft perspective. We'll get through the last picks. Falcons trade up to grab James Pierce. I know we gave up a lot. I don't care. I do care, but I don't care. We needed defense. I'm just happy we fucking drafted defensive players. I'm happy we drafted someone that can get after the fucking quarterback. We got 2 of them. We haven't done that successfully in 15 fucking years. We got to pick 15, and I was like, holy fuck, we're getting Jalen Walker. We are getting Walker. And I was so fucking happy that both tight ends were off the board. I don't know why I had a disgusting gut feeling that if Colston Loveland was available at 15, we were going to take him. It's not even a joke. It's not hyperbole. I thought we were going to be like, we're done with Kyle Pitts. Let's get our next pass catcher. Thank God. It was all roads led to Walker. Best prospect available. Tight ends off the fucking board. If we didn't draft him, I'll just say there wouldn't be a live stream today. There wouldn't be content coming out on this channel ever again. That's how I'll put it. We grabbed Jalen Walker. We got James Pierce Jr., very athletic guy. A lot of upside. So one of these guys is going to hit. I think it's going to be Jalen Walker. Hopefully James Pierce can become a fucking stud too. This is what we needed. We needed to go heavy on the pass rush. Love to see it. Baltimore, when you get to the bottom of the draft, it's just good fucking franchises making good picks. It's like you hit on your quarterback. Like, look at the last 6 teams. You get your quarterback. You got Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff. He don't really fit there. Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson. You hit those, and then you just get to draft really good fucking players in the trenches and players that make plays on both sides of the fucking ball. You just hit O-tackle. Every year you hit O-tackle. Every year you hit DN. Every year you hit cornerback. And then you just stay good forever. Baltimore getting Malachi Starks to pair with Kyle Hamilton, dangerous. I actually don't know who Tyreek Williams is, to be honest with you, so I'm just going to assume he's good and he's fucking nasty and he's going to be Alan McNeil and all that shit. Josh Connerly for Washington, obviously trying to build around Jaden Daniels, so they get a lineman, Maxwell Hairston, sub 4.3 40 guy at cornerback for Buffalo. Jahad Campbell fell to Philly, another fucking great value pick for them. And then you got Josh Simmons at tackle for the Chiefs. Josh Simmons is a dude who, if he wasn't injured, was looked at as a top 5 prospect in this class, possibly the OT1 in this class. So they feel like they got a steal, and if they can get him on the field permanently, that feels just like, the typical Chiefs stay doing Chiefs things and hit on a really good player there and shore up the position that they needed at the tackle position. So with that, those are the skill players. We can talk about it from a redraft standpoint. Or one quarterback. With Cam Ward, obviously, he's the only quarterback you're looking at right now in like a rookie draft for one QB. But even then, I'm not overly excited to draft him. He's probably an end of second round, early round 3, one QB league pick if you need a quarterback. Outside of that, you're looking at the skill players, obviously, because they don't have like a high upside rushing QB in this class that you're going to overpay for in a one quarterback league. From a redraft perspective, like Superflex leagues with Cam Ward, I imagine he's going to fit in somewhere in like the quarterback 23 to 28 range. Would not want him to be a starter for me in a Superflex league just because the situation in Tennessee just isn't phenomenal. I don't expect a ton of statistical production from him as a rookie. Hunter as a rookie, I do think he'll put up like really solid PPR numbers. I think I saw someone ask about IDP, and I'll just say again, I've never played in an IDP league, so I don't know how the scoring settings work. I don't know what they get. I don't know how it would count towards your play. If you don't have IDP scoring settings on, though, like tackles and interceptions are not going to count towards Travis Hunter's scoring. But I do think Travis Hunter can catch 70 passes as a rookie, go like 70 for 800 and 5 or 6 touchdowns, which is not nothing. Like that's a decent rookie year, and he'll have games where. And also with like rookies, when they do that, a lot of times typically that's like backloaded. So you'll see like the first 4 weeks, they're kind of slow to get out. Maybe they're catching 2-3 passes a game, 30 to 40 yards. Maybe they score once in that first month. And then you have the last 12 weeks of the season where they're putting together most of that statistical production. So you might look back and be like, 70 for 805 is like, cool, I'm not an impact player. But if it was, 70 for 805 in 12 weeks, then you're like, okay, he has really big weeks probably on the schedule. So Hunter, I think, is a super valid like wide receiver, 4 or 5 pick for you in fantasy this year for redraft. Jeanty immediately, I don't know if there's a spot in a redraft that's like too high to take him. A lot of really good receivers, obviously. Like you're in redraft leagues where you're getting dudes like Puka and Nico Collins and those types, probably in like the 106 to 110 range. I think Jeanty kind of falls in there. I'm not going to take him above Bijan. I'm not going to take him above Saquon. Probably not above Gibbs, but like I think he's right there. I think he'll be right there in like the RB 3 to 6 mix for redraft stuff, and I really wouldn't argue against it. I think he'll likely be a first round pick in redraft leagues. Tet's interesting. He's a guy that I think you should take shots on. Like if you think about Brian Thomas Jr. last year, Brian Thomas Jr. was for the most part like in normal home leagues, I think he was like a 7th, 8th round pick. And to be fair, this is where a lot of rookies were going. Like Keon Coleman was right there as well. Ladd McConkey was right there as well. So I think Tet will kind of fall into that spot where he's like, you're a little bit unsure, but you take shots on him in the 6th, 7th, 8th round in case he hits that rookie upside that we've seen from a lot of rookies in recent years. We have Colston Loveland, who, again, I think there's still a lot of moving parts in Chicago, and I think it'll take them a minute to really like hit their stride. But he's a guy that I think could also have instant production as a rookie because of Ben Johnson there. So he's not someone that I'm going to want to draft as my starter this year by any means. But if you have a solid tight end one and you want to take an upside shot on behind him, got no problem with that. Warren's probably going to be a stay away for me in redraft this year, just for obvious fucking reasons. Ibuka is also going to be a stay away for the most part for me in a redraft. Though, again, in the same way that I explained that I think a lot can go wrong with the wide receiver group in Tampa Bay by next year, that shit could also happen this year. Like if Chris Godwin's injury ends up, hampering him, if Mike Evans has another hamstring pull as he gets older, he can get on the field pretty quickly, and that's a high volume passing offense that's going to be highly efficient, and Baker's going to take shots downfield. So I could see him being a player this year. He's not someone that I would shy away from drafting in the later rounds of draft. I wouldn't take him where like Tet McMillan is going. I wouldn't be drafting Egbuka in like the 6th, 7th, 8th round range. But I'd imagine right now, I don't have ADPs off the top of my hand, but I'd imagine when drafts really settle, he'll probably be in that like 10th to 13th round range. If you're in like a friends and family league, he'll probably drop significantly further than that, but that feels about right for him. Let me get to Omarion Hampton, which is probably going to be the toughest one to predict in terms of redraft. I think most people will finally come to the consensus that like we realize Najee Harris's contract is not that big and it's not that impactful. That being said, Hampton probably doesn't go into a bell cow role in year one. I still think he can average 15 touches a game. If you're a round one running back, you're immediately going into a relatively high volume role. Obviously, the ones that are picked in the top 10 or top 5 are typically going into a 250, 300, 350 touch role right out of the gate, and you are immediately plugged in as your team starter. When you get down, the draft board a little bit, you probably have to win that role, and maybe you're competing with someone else. And, had they not signed Najee Harris this offseason, Omarion Hampton would be the clear 102 and likely a top 15 pick in fantasy drafts. But I do think Najee Harris complicates things a little bit. They're not just going to not use him. I think you saw when Dobbins was hurt, when any of their running backs were hurt last year, they had trouble leaning on a single running back. And I think Harbaugh wants a sure thing in the backfield. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of keeps these two fresh, bouncing off of each other. So I'm not expecting a 300, 350 touch workload out of Omarion Hampton, but I do think he can play all three downs. I do think that offense lends itself to a ton of touchdown upside, goal line work. Don't know who that's going to be, Hampton or Najee. I think they'd probably lean Hampton there. But honestly, they're kind of stylistically similar. Hampton has a little bit more explosiveness, but they're both 3-down players with a lot of size, can hit you with power, can hit you with wiggle. Like, they move similarly. Hampton's better, obviously, but Najee's a similar type of player. So if I had to guess, I would say the touches probably split up in year one in favor of Hampton 60, 62, 38, 60, 40 in that range, with obvious crazy upside if Najee does get hurt there. But Hampton will be the guy. I'm not going to overdraft him in a redraft because I do think this ultimately ends up being some sort of a committee here that caps his ceiling a little bit. But I think he's a good chance, good shot to be 1,100 yards from scrimmage and somewhere. If he takes the goal line role, maybe his upside is 8 to 10 touchdowns, which is a really solid fantasy running back, just not the upside of like RB1. So I think Hampton probably ultimately settles in around like in the third round of fantasy drafts, I would say, somewhere in like the 305 all the way to maybe like the 4.2, 4.1. I think that's probably a good spot for him. Who else? Yeah, Jaxson Dart we're definitely not taking in redraft. And kind of feel that's really all the fantasy impact that we have from round one. Let's jump into the chat a little bit. What do we got? Adam says Chargers backfield is thunder and thunder. Yes, sir. So Hampton had a really good combine, obviously, especially for his size. But I also don't think he plays. I don't think he plays as fast as like his combine speed suggests. So I definitely look at him as more thunder as well. I have the 105 and the 107. I need a wide receiver and a running back. What are we feeling? 12-team super flex. Well, really, it does depend on how the draft shake up. I have Tet as my 105 right now. So I think there's a chance you can grab him or Travis Hunter. Hopefully you have a quarterback needy team in your draft that will take Cam Ward. Jeanty will obviously go 1, but I think you have, some other picks there that if Travis Hunter or Tet falls there, I think that's solid for you. And then you'll have Trayvon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. Like, someone's going to go to Denver probably, and someone's going to go to some of these landing spots that are really juicy. So I think there's a really good chance that you get like a solid starter off the rip. Like, you can end up walking away with like a Tet versus I think you can walk away with like a Tet and a Judkins and feel pretty good about it. Ramondre and Swift share still holding strong. Yeah, I mean, the Bears have picked 39 and 41. I would be fucking shocked if they don't escape with a running back at one of those two. Ramondre, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, and if anyone wants to go back and like timestamp when I went through everything, you would be legendary, because I did talk about Golden. I went through all the fantasy relevant picks, but obviously this is a live stream, so I don't have timestamps. Any hope for Luther Burden? I mean, yeah, he'll get drafted early day 2. I was not as big of a fan of Luther Burden as some people in this draft class. So this kind of like solidified it for me, and I think he'll end up being a round 2 pick in rookie drafts for me, pretty much regardless of where he ends up going today. Luther Burden was a guy I was like, I kind of think you know what you're getting. I don't think he's a great route runner. I think he's great with the ball in his hands afterwards. Obviously, a super lack of production this year. I do think a lot of his quarterback play and the way that they use him just purely around the line of scrimmage had a much better year last year. But I will say I went back and watched the tape because I was like, I got to make sure that I feel the same way. The stats were there for sure. I didn't feel much better about Luther Burden as a prospect and a route runner after watching last year's tape. So I think he's a good player, but he's not someone that I see like developing into an elite wide receiver 1. But that being said, like had he gone to Green Bay instead of Matthew Golden, I don't know that I feel like significantly stronger about Matthew Golden being picked there for fantasy than I would have like Luther Burden. So where does Trayvon Henderson end up? I mean, if I'm looking at the draft order today, there are very clear and obvious landing spots. I mean, here's where I look. The Browns have picked 33 and 36. So they have 2 of the first 4 picks in this second round. I mean, they could definitely go with Shedeur as one of them. They could go with a running back with one of these as well. So Cleveland is a top spot for a running back. The Patriots do fall to the 6th pick here, so they can go running back as well. And then you've got Bears with 2 of the next 3 picks. They've got pick 39 and 41 again. So I think you have 5 different landing spots within the first, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 spots. 5 out of the 9 picks here, assuming Cleveland or Chicago doesn't move one of their picks, could for sure be a running back spot. And then 3 picks later, you've got Dallas. Dallas could absolutely be a landing spot for a running back. I don't see a ton of openings after that, though. Denver at pick 51 makes a ton of sense for a running back. Washington at 61 makes sense as well. And maybe Kansas City at pick 63. So I think there are some really good landing spots for running back that make a lot of sense and very early in the second round. How does it affect Jalen McMillan? Yeah, I mean, it hurts McMillan a lot for sure, especially like us getting excited about him towards the end of last year. I mean, you know, you've got 2 stud wide receivers. They just re-signed Godwin and then used a first-round pick on Ibuka. There's no positive way to paint this for Jalen McMillan. How many running backs are we getting in day 2? Judkins, Henderson, Caleb Johnson. I think we get Dylan Sampson. I like Cam Scatterbo. I don't think I've heard enough like hype from NFL people to feel confident that he goes day 3. I think if I had to bet my life, I'd put the over-under at 4.5. Because there's a chance that a team takes a late third-round shot on Scatabo, on Bashal Tutin, on RJ Harvey, or someone that's like kind of exciting. But I feel really good about Judkins, Henderson, Caleb Johnson, and Dylan Sampson going in somewhere in day 2, from pick 33 all the way back to, 90 or 100 or whatever. So you probably already talked about this, but how are you feeling about the new Falcons pass rushers? Actually, I'm glad you asked. I didn't talk about it at all. If I had to say 2 of the best picks I've ever seen, we literally got Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney. Like, that's what we just got in one class. Going to look back at this as top 3 drafts of all time. Love to see it. I'm just fucking happy we added to the pass rush. Like, that's been our top need for 10 years, for a decade. If you put the graphics for every time the Falcons were on the clock over the last 10 years, the number 1 top need in every single one of them. Like, stack them up. 2012, Falcons on the clock, draft needs. 2013, 2014, 2015, it would be edge DE, edge DE, edge DE for 15 plus fucking years. Holy hell. What the hell? Over under is 4.5. Oh, dub. That's on a sports book somewhere? I'm just heat like that. I have the 103 and a 10-team super flex. Ward is probably the 102. Hampton or Tet. I could use either position. I would have Hampton above Tet. Your thoughts on Starks? I mean, super solid pick for Baltimore. The most like typical Baltimore pick. Pick a really good player that falls because other teams are looking for more like flash or pizzazz. Safety's obviously not a super high value position in an NFL draft. So, just stacking him with Kyle Hamilton, getting a Georgia defensive player can never go wrong. So just A-plus pick for Baltimore, as always. Buy, sell, hold Taco Bell breakfast. I've never had Taco Bell breakfast. I so rarely eat Taco Bell. I've probably had Taco Bell. I think I could count on 2 hands how many times I've had Taco Bell in my life. Probably around 7 or 8. I don't know. It's not that I like hate Taco. At this point in my life, I don't eat a lot of fast food, but when I did, Taco Bell was never like my first choice. Give me fucking Don's, give me Wendon's, give me many, many, many Chick-fil-A. Give me so many fast food places above Taco Bell. I just like buying eggs from somewhere is weird. Does anyone else feel that way? Like going somewhere to pay for eggs feels fucking weird. I don't trust a Mexican fast food place to make me some sort of egg fucking breakfast. We're selling the shit out of it. Fuck it. Fact it. DJ Giddens. Yeah. I mean, I guess I won't be totally shocked, but he feels like a day 3 guy to me. The Chargers should have taken Golden instead. Yep. I don't disagree with you here. I think a pass catcher probably would have done a little better for them, but my only issue with Pierce is they gave up a ton, and 2 of the top 3 pass rushers are still available. Yeah, listen, we gave up a shitload. Our next year first to get to pick 26, we gave up a lot. Obviously, it won't matter if he ends up panning out and being a great player. We won't really care what we gave up. That being said, like I'm assuming you're talking about Mike Green as one of the guys left. There's clearly off the field concerns there. He has like 2 sexual assault, not cases, but allegations against him, which he's like a top 15 player in this draft for the most part from a talent perspective. So him and like Will Johnson. Johnson's got the injury concerns. Mike Green has the off-the-field concerns. So I get it, but they felt a lot better about James Pierce's character. And from what I've read, Pierce was like their target at pick 15 because they didn't expect Jalen Walker to fall to 15. So Pierce to them was a top 15, top 12. I don't know how high they had him ranked. Maybe their number 8 overall player on the board. So for them, it felt like the right pick. Did the Steelers reach with Harmon? I to be honest, I don't really know much about Harmon. Like I don't watch D-tackle film much. I bet they were praying that Walter Nolan got to him, but he didn't. So they picked for need there. I got a wild one, heavy running back premium league, but start 4 wide receivers. I have London. I have JJ. So we got Drake London, Justin Jefferson, CD, Tyreek, Jesus, Xavier Worthy. Thought about moving London and a 2027 second for the 102 and Waddle and snag Hampton. I don't hate that move at all. I mean, Waddle is a nice insurance piece for London, especially if Tyreek Hill gets moved and isn't with Miami. Waddle has a much higher floor now. When I look at Drake London, like, yes, on a raw value prop, he would probably be the 102 for me right now. If you're like, oh, I know where Drake London is going, I know what he's done so far in the NFL, London is like the 102. You take him after Jeanty, but I don't know that you'd have a good argument to take anyone above London. So when I look at the trade, I think it's a good cross out. London for 102 is fair. And then I would easily send a 2027 second for Waddle for sure. So that trade makes a lot of sense for me. And I also think the kicker with having Waddle as a little bit of insurance for Tyreek Hill is pretty good. Rams trading out of 26 is insurance for Stafford. I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't think whoever they would have drafted, like Stafford's not going to be here for long. I think we know that. Probably this last year, maybe 2 years at the most. And I think whoever they would have taken at 25, Jaxson, Dart, 26, whatever. I don't think was going to. I mean, wasn't playing year one anyways. And if Stafford was good, wasn't going to fucking play year two either. Could have been a Jordan Love situation where, however long Stafford continues to play at a good level, like that guy is going to sit behind him. So I don't think so. I think the Rams just saw an opportunity to, not move back very much. They probably didn't have super high grades or thought anyone was an immediate impact player for them, and was able to pick up a second first round pick next year. So I think it was just good old business for them. I joined at a weird part of the live stream. Yeah, go get yourself some Taco Bell at breakfast, Steven. All right, I'm going to wrap up there. I think most of you guys are probably asking questions that I had answered at one point or another, so hopefully someone does some timestamps for me. That would be fucking incredible. Otherwise, you'll probably be able to figure out who I'm talking about quite quickly based on the board to the right. So I will leave y'all at that. Again, I will be live tomorrow, probably same time, 10 a.m. Eastern time, recapping rounds 2 and 3. There will be a video going live today in a couple hours that I will rank all the rookies that were drafted in the NFL draft for your Superflex rookie drafts. We'll do the same thing tomorrow as well. So subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Shout out the Falcons. That's it. Super Bowl faves. Super Bowl fade. Mochis.